do. Man needs but to make a receptacle for his livelihood and to endeavor with all his power that the receptacle be pure, saf, of any impurity or drive or dross, of cheating others and the like. This means that whatever he does conforms to Torah laws. Thus, he becomes a vessel worthy of God's blessing in two ways. His livelihood will be ample, and his earnings will be spent on worthy, desirable matters. Continuing our discussion of all about Sha'ar Yichud ve'emunah, the gateway to sort of ingesting, feeling, living with the notion of Hashem's unity, which is totally beyond reasoning, totally beyond seichel, totally beyond anything that we know, because we're all created beings, and that's our perspective, and fostering the faculty by which we do become aware of this, which is emunah. Sha'ar Yichud ve'emunah. Lessons in Tanya, near the bottom of page 945. And in Likuti Amorim, yes, Likuti Amorim, page 170, counting from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down from the top. Continuing our discussion, focusing yesterday and continuing today on the way we're constituted versus anything you can say about Hashem. Okay, so when we look at ourselves, on the one hand, there's a lurking in the background, here is a certain contradiction that we're created in God's image. So from that perspective, we have a likeness to Hashem. But that's important. It's a kedemus. It's a likeness. And what's the likeness? Just as he has 10 spiros, we have 10 powers. The highest level of spira that we have, and that all creation has, is chokhmah. Koyach ma, the power to ingest something which is way beyond us. But we begin with chokhmah. And as we'll say later, tomorrow actually, so God also has chokhmah. But there's a pasuk that says, Kulam b'chokhmah asiso, which the plain meaning is he does everything wisely. But Kabbalah and Chassidus understand it as his chokhmah is just like asiyah, it's just like doing. It's like the bottom of the heap, compared to us, where chokhmah is so-called the top of the heap. Shalachei nikra reishis. That's why chokhmah is called the head, or the beginning. Ki ba'emes hi reishis u'makor kol hachayis b'nevroim, because chokhmah is that place where originates all the life force, all the is the source and the life force of all created things. Because from Chokhmah there is drawn, of course, Bina and then Das. And from this triad, Chokhmah, Bina, Das, Chabad, Nimshach Kol Hamidos, is drawn all the midos, Shebenefesh, of the soul, Hamaskeles, which is Chabad, is the mindful aspect of all the attributes that we have, and that flows down into the midos shebalev, which is called Ava, love, Chesed, Rachamim, mercy, and Kayetzi Bahem, and the other midos which are in that category of about the mind and Hagas, largely heart. Also, I'm pointing to different parts of the body. This is the head, the midos are in the torso and below. And as we see in actuality, Shahakotan, you have a small child, She'ein bo das, he doesn't have a lot of das, he doesn't have a lot of knowledge and awareness. Ubekas tomit, he can be angry at little things. He can even be cruel. And even the things he loves are teeny things, little things that wouldn't, that an adult would not pay much attention to. Which an adult, from a more mature perspective, these little things that a kid plays with are not something that one would love. Why? But why are they small? And why is he involved in small things? Because he doesn't have, I'll put in the word mature, he doesn't have a mature sense of das. Just love things which are more properly things that are valuable to be cherished, etc. And the reason is because love is according to das. Back to our construct, the head, right? The right, left, middle brain, posterior lobe is das. Das connects with the top of the spine, and that goes all the way down into the torso. So everything physiologically and psychologically are affected by the quality of one's das. And the midos of the soul are drawn into the soul, and that draws, which we're working our way downward, Chachma Bina Das, and now the midos, and what's after the midos is Malchus, and Malchus is called in Kabbalah Malchus Peh. Malchus is the mouth, so that gives rise to thought and speech, which is the Tevis Ve'oisis HaMachshava, the words and letters of thought, Shahanefesh Machsheves V'Dovesh Ahava, because the soul, the feelingful part of a person, the nefesh, which is embedded in a person's heart, is inclined and thinks after things, about things that you like, or the opposite. If you're on the positive side, thinking about something you like, and then taking that thought and not necessarily turning it into speech, but turning it into an act of kindness. One then start to think about, if you're thinking about something kind, and your kindness is aroused, you think about then how to affect it, how to bring this kindness out, and your mercy. And similarly, we could do the same thing we just talked about with any other midos. Describe its descent from das into the heart and body, and then the activity that pertains to that particular midah. And in every thought that exists in the world, and here we can use the word world largely, in any world, there is enclosed in this thought is a midah, right? Whether it's in the world of Atzilus, Bri, Yetzirah, or Siyah, the thought contains and is driven by the fact that there's a midah, the action is contained, the thought is driven by some midah, which brings it into being. This melubish ba is a midah, which this midah, if I'm feeling kind, I start thinking about how to activate the kindness. So that midah becomes enclosed in the thought. Umidah zu hi chiyusa. And this midah, the midah we're using here of kindness, is effectively the driving force. It's what's responsible for the life of this machshava zu, the thought of kindness. And now we're working our way down, and from the letters of thought, and thinking about how to be kind and what I'm going to do, comes words of speech, or as we said earlier, actual actions. But hamaisa indeed is an action, right? That's established for us as an halacha, that bringing something to speech is a deed. So it can come down into speech. The hein chayus and mamish. So these midos are the life force, mamish, of the thought or the deed of mashams. The hadiba maybe l'demasa, and the speech or the thought, the internal speech, brings you to deed. And in this case, the deed of tzedakah v'chesed, the act of righteousness and kindness. He gives an example: Kagoin HaMelech, a king, where you see how speech gets translated into deed. Shemetzavala avodav, he commands his servants litem, to give something. V'gam kishaodam oise ba'asma eze dover, and also when a person does something, harikoyach hanefesh v'kiyusa hamislabeshes v'asiyah zu. So the soul power and the life force, which is enclosed in this deed, he and mamish lagabe is actually like ka'ayin, is like nothing. Lagabe koyach hanefesh v'chiyusa hamislabeshes b'dibra adam in regard to the thought. Now he worked his way down. Now he's working his way up. The act that you do is minuscule compared to the thought or the meter which drove it. Okay, haguf, the action compared to the meter which drove it is like comparing the body to the soul. The soul of the action is the meter which drove the action. Now we'll go a level up. The levels of speech or thought which drove the deed are nothing compared to the meter. And similarly, the letters of speech are nothing compared to their source, which is the mashava, the thought. And also, remember, the mida is driving the thought is driving the speech or the deed. And so the thought is nothing compared to the actual mida, which is enclosed in it, and which is enlivening. Likewise, another step, the mida itself, comparability of what that mida is and the life force of the mida is relatively speaking nothing in relation to the intellectual powers, the mindful powers which drove the mida, which the all-inclusiveness of Chachma Bina Das is called seichel. And it's from the seichel that the mida is drawn. So all of this, and this is culminating, and we'll finish for the time being at least, the explanation of the structure and the process by which the 10 faculties, the 10 koichos of the person are arranged in order that a person should be a person that he is. All that we describe is in the soul of a person. And nefesh kol haburuyim shebekol ha'olamus, and it describes the soul and the hierarchy and the flow of action from the soul to the externality of creatures in all the worlds, in the upper worlds and the lower worlds. Shebekulam, that in all of them, this is the point we started with, chokhmah, which is the top, that's the source of the wellspring of life, which spreads and articulates itself in many different ways downward throughout the being of any being, whether a corporeal being like us below or a spiritual being like those above. And tomorrow we will begin to contrast that with Ava, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, is a different story. That's today's time. Comments, questions? Okay, then we will see you tomorrow in your session. Everyone have a wonderful evening.